consulate once again in San Francisco was attacked. This time, they sought to set it on fire. The fire department thankfully quickly extinguished the blaze and no major damage or injuries were reported. Now, a video shared by a San Francisco-based Twitter handle showed the consulate being set on fire with the words, quote, "Violence begets violence," superimposed on it. The video also showed newspaper clippings reporting the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a designated terrorist who was shot dead in Canada last month in what seems to be a gang action, which indicated that the consulate was targeted to avenge, quote-unquote, Nijjar's killing. Now, another protest is called in Canada's Toronto by pro-Khalistani elements on July 8th. The posters of the protest march were circulated on social media. These posters accused top Indian diplomats and identified them with name and photograph in several countries for Nijjar's killing. This is not the first time that Indian diplomatic missions have been targeted. Just in recent months, these attacks have increased from Canada, Britain to Australia. India has issued several warnings to these countries, including Britain. But what is also clear is that domestic political interests seem to be ensuring that these countries don't crack down fully on even violent and criminal elements against India. So is it time for India to up the ante to ensure action on these Khalistani elements? And for that, what can India do diplomatically? We'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. Now, these are the visuals of the attack on the San Francisco consulate. It was set on fire by Khalistani supporters in the early hours of Sunday. The K-mob attacked the consulate to avenge, as I said, Khalistani leaders who were killed recently. This is the second such attack on this consulate in 5 months. Remember, in March, when Punjab police launched a nationwide search for Amritpal Singh in India, Khalistani supporters had vandalized the same consulate. Protesters shouting pro-Khalistan slogans broke through security barriers to install Khalistani banners inside the consulate premises. Meanwhile, few posters that I was mentioning were released by Khalistani groups accusing Indian envoys of US, Canada and Australia of playing a role in the killing of Khalistani Tiger Force chief Hardeep Nijjar. These posters are being circulated by these elements online. They are an invitation to a rally too, Khalistan Freedom Rally, planned for July 8, which will take place in Toronto and is expected to culminate at the Consulate General of India. Now, here is how India has reacted so far on the latest episode that has come to light. The Canadian High Commissioner was summoned and issued a démarche in Delhi. The MEA is also set to raise this poster issue with both USA and Australia. Meanwhile, of course, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has in the past and has now also said that Canada, US, Australia, UK should not give space to these Khalistanis. Meanwhile, the United States condemned the attack on the Indian consulate in San Francisco. US State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller reminded the culprits that vandalism or violence against diplomatic facilities of foreign diplomats in the US is a criminal offense. But we'll wait and see if they'll truly act and crack down on these elements. I'm sure they're known to their intelligence agency. Now, since the March attack on the Indian embassy in London, a lot of K-Force members have been either killed or jailed in various countries, and many feel these heightened attacks on Indian embassies are increasing because the desperation of the K-gang is also increasing. Let me take you through what has happened over the last few weeks. The biggest name, of course, is Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was chief of Khalistani Tiger Force, who was shot dead in Surrey in Canada on June 18. He had a bounty of 10 lakh rupees by the NIA, and his killing is the one Khalistani groups are pinning on India and claiming to avenge. Before that is the curious case of Avtar Singh Khanda, implicated in the attack on Indian embassy in London, who died allegedly due to blood cancer. He was also alleged to have trained Punjab Dewaris chief Amritpal Singh. Before that, in May, on May 6 to be precise, head of Khalistan Commando Force Paramjeet Singh Panjwar was shot dead by 2 assailants in Lahore in Pakistan. He was a most wanted criminal in India, accused of drug and weapons smuggling. This all followed India's own crackdown on Amritpal Singh, face of the K-Force in India and chief of Waris-e-Punjab, accused of pushing separatist tendencies in the state and the country. And finally, Baltej Singh, nephew of Satwant Singh, killer of Indira Gandhi, who was based in New Zealand. He was actually recently arrested on drug-related charges, finally, in Auckland. The big question we're debating today, with another Indian consulate attack and a clear target on Indian consulate workers as well. Is it not time for India to up the ante? But for that, what is it that India can truly do?
हमारे जो पार्टनर देश जो है, जैसे कनाडा है, अमेरिका है, यूके है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया है, जहाँ कभी कभी खालिस्तानी एक्टिविटीज़ होती हैं, हमने उनको रिक्वेस्ट की है कि वो उनको खालिस्तानियों को स्पेस न दें।
I want to go across to our guest joining us. Nicholas Nugent is a senior journalist joining us from Britain. I'm awaiting the arrival of G. Parthasarathi, former Indian diplomat. Anil Saran is BJP spokesperson joining us, and Puneet Sani is activist who's based in the US. So Puneet, let me come to you first. How is this attack being seen in the US Canadian communities? It seems like the Khalistanis are emboldened or they are desperate because a lot of their members are, you know, as I said, either dying in some in gang-related issues or are being jailed and acted upon in various countries. Do you see this as a sign of desperation?
Jai Mabarti, Shivani. Thank you for inviting me. I think there are two different. So we are conflating, Canada and US as like one, whereas actually they are very, very different. And, I don't want to take the discussion in a different line. I just give you an example and that will underline the point. So, for example, in 1985, when they were, planning to, bomb the airliner, this Khalistan is in Canada. At the same time, they were trying to murder Rajiv Gandhi and bomb they were trying to get explosives. So in Canada, they managed with the bombing and they got away with it. Whereas in US, the FBI got the guy, his name was Gurpratap Singh Birk, and he was sent to 13 years of prison. So of course, like America is going through its own churning. But in terms of dealing with terrorism, it has a much, much better record. So hopefully, there would be consequences for what has happened in San Francisco.
No, but can I conversely, just to interrupt you, and you can continue with the Canada issue as well, which I know is the more serious issue. Because US is what it is, and because in US managing an attack like this is considered to be harder, don't you think in that respect the same embassy getting attacked twice in 5 months is a grave issue? Aren't they failing to protect this consulate?
Yes, so the thing is, so first of course, with the internet, so a lot of things are, like coming together. And also, like US is going through a lot of, Shivani, you would be like blown away, So for example, in just this 2.5 years with this new government, I'm not into politics with Biden, but most of, these people, like this 65 lakh people, 6.5 million have crossed the southern border from Mexico into this. And, like I live in New York, so they mostly go to California and New York. And if you go here, like to this processing, you'll find like so many of them, almost as many as people from South America, like from India, from Punjab. So a lot of these illegal immigrants are joining. And, then I also did a disclosure of Simranjit Singh Mann, how these illegal immigrants use this thing of, Khalistan to basically get illegal asylum here. And then actually they have to attack the consulates because, then they get a police case and then they show, see the Indian government is going after us. So please give us asylum. So it's basically an entire mafia operation, of course, with the collusion of ISI. That this whole is happening, but things are really going out of control. I just, you have other guests. I just want to say, like they put this, poster of, Indian diplomats. And they're not just like some like clerk or something. They're like the senior most diplomats.
Consul General, yes.
And I'm just, And Shivani, I just want to make a question to all this. Imagine, like if you're an Indian citizen, if you're an Indian, so if you have a problem, what is the highest thing you can do? Like maybe the ambassador will look after your case, right? That is the highest thing you can imagine. So if they can do this, if they can paint a target on the back of the High Commissioner and the Consul General, they have basically terrified everybody into silence.
Yes.
What would the average Indian think? They can't do nothing. If
no, you're right
High
about
Commissioner
this.
Cannot do it.
They have escalated this by quite a few levels. And G. Parthasarathi is joining us. He's one of our most experienced diplomats. Sir, how serious is the fact that diplomats, current serving diplomats, photographs and names are being published in these posters? This is a criminal act because you are basically painting a target on their back. This is, as clear as it gets. This is not about activism anymore. And the US must show the will to act on this. US, Canada, Australia, UK, all governments.
Look, let us be clear. I was in the US during the height of the Khalistan trouble in the embassy. as the political counselor. The US has no sympathy for these people. That's one thing. The second thing is that the real threat is in Canada.
True.
You have to work. I'm sure the intelligence agencies know what they're doing, and we generally work pretty closely on such matters with American intelligence agencies, whether it is with the FBI or the CIA. So, yes, this is a threat, but just remember one thing. The real number of Khalistani extremists is based in Canada, not in the United States. And travel between the US and Canada is a very, very liberal thing. We have to work. And the other thing is, I don't trust Trudeau and the Canadians. They are playing footsie with the Khalistanis.
Yeah, he's
and
routinely
the
seen
government
with them.
can't say so, but as a private citizen, I can, though a former diplomat. So I think the real problem lies in Canada, from where these people come. Even if you go through the history, I've been dealing with this since a very long time. The only serious Khalistani there died a couple of years ago. His name was Ganga Singh Dhillon. So I think the US has a law and order agency. We'll have to work very closely with it. But for God's sake, we should not get rattled by it.
Okay. Getting
rattled by a terrorist is a fatal mistake. And let's not start scaring everybody about how bad it is. It is bad. And the embassy knows about it. And please believe me, we have a very good relationship with the US law and order authorities. And the other advantage we have now is the Indian community is very highly respected.
Yes.
And we will also have to work with the Indian community.
Can I ask you, sir?
It is going to be a time, but we shouldn't get hysterical about these things.
Fair enough.
These things happen, and you have to deal with it in due course.
Can I ask you, sir, why doesn't the US authorities, the country with which we have a better relationship on these issues, let's say, as you said, you're not so much with Canada. Why doesn't the US...
I regard Trudeau as a Khalistani, for God's sake.
No, I think he's proving himself to be a Khalistani. His actions speak louder than words. And you're right, he's been pussyfooting with the Khalistanis. He's seen regularly at Khalistani elements. And I'll come to that issue. But why doesn't the US, as an ally of India and as a friend of India, press even on its neighbor Canada? Why don't they do something jointly to ensure that the Canadians... that those who are in Canada or in US or who travel and try to mount these attacks can be caught and nabbed? Surely the intelligence agencies can share this intel and act on it.
Look, let's be real. The Khalistanis form a vote bank in Canada.
Precisely.
They have their own clout and they have their own way of acting. The best we can do at this point in time, and I'm certain, given our friendly ties with the US, the Americans will spare no effort to cooperate with us. The other thing is, we also have to be careful. A large number of Sikhs, especially in the United States, I can say 99.9% of them are good, true Indians who have done us proud in the United States. The immigration pattern was different from in Canada, where everyone, all and sundry, gotten into. So you will not find the likes of the Khalistanis in the US that you find in Canada. The problem is different. So I think, yes, we will have to organize something tripartite with India, US, and Canada. But given the way President Trudeau has sort of acted, generally the Canadian establishment has acted, I think we need to take a far more serious view of our relations with Canada.
Okay. Sir, I'm just going to come back to you. I'm going to come back to you on what India should seriously consider then when it comes to Canada. The External Affairs Minister has been making statements warning them. But let me bring in our other two guests as well. Let me go across to Nicholas as well before I go to Anil Sarin. Nicholas Nugent, is there a realization setting in countries like UK, Canada, let's say leave aside USA, but also in Australia, you come from UK, that these elements, there's no point breeding them, even if they were to be used for some, political aim or move, they're going to eventually hurt their resident societies as much as they plan to hurt India. That's the main focus that these countries need to understand.
Well, yes. I'm old enough to have covered the Khalistani events in India in the 1980s, when it was a real threat within India. What puzzles me now is why we are so excited by overseas activity that doesn't ostensibly seem to present much of a threat, if any, with India itself. Okay, I recognize that it's Indian diplomatic missions that are coming under threat these days. And I think the governments concerned, certainly the British and the American governments, have apologized for letting things get a bit out of control. But what more do you want them to do? Do you want them to arrest these people for the attacks? Because in all three countries we're talking about, I mean, Canada, United States, and Britain, free speech is very important, and the right to demonstrate is very important.
But sir, this is not free speech.
None of those governments is going to hold back on that.
But is this free speech? One second. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. I just want to understand this. Is this free speech and falls under the right to demonstrate, setting a building on fire, or pulling down the flag of the Indian embassy in London? Surely we expect them to be arrested.
That's exactly the point I'm making. These governments have to draw a line between legitimate right to protest and illegitimate right, or non-right rather, to cause damage or to set fire or to be a threat to individuals. And that's what I think they're trying to do. That's why the British government was quite swift to apologize for letting the protest in March outside the Indian High Commission in London get out of control. Clearly, they hadn't seen it coming and they weren't prepared. And I'd like to think the next time, if there is a next time, they will be prepared. But I'm asking you to understand that these governments have to draw the line between a legitimate right to protest and the illegality of causing damage or threatening individuals, which is clearly beyond the pale. But, you know, we are talking about something that's happening in these three countries. And I repeat my initial point, is the Khalistani movement a threat to India itself, or are we only thinking about protection of Indian property overseas?
Okay. I'll take that forward with some of our guests. But can I ask you a follow-up very quickly, Mr. Nugent? What about the realization in countries like Canada? Like, what is happening in Canada? And as two of our guests who've spoken continue to shine a light on what's happening in Canada, it is purely out of vote bank politics. What is to be done in a scenario like that? Maybe that's not the case for UK, USA, and even Australia, but certainly that case prevails in Canada.
Well, that's why I'm not in a position to answer your question, because I do know that Sikh activity is very tied up with Canadian politics, and I don't really understand that. I know that the Prime Minister depends on the Sikh vote. So they have to address their own particular issue. That's not the case in Britain. The Khalistani movement has never been a political issue within the British political scene, and indeed Sikh activity, Sikhs are a very small factor within Britain, certainly nothing approaching the politics. So you'll have to ask somebody else about the Canada factor.
All right, I'll ask Puneet Sahni about that. He's been wanting to come in as well. But Anil Sarin, I'm coming to you. One of the questions Mr. Nugent is raising, G. Parthasarathy also alluded to it. Let's not react too much. But Mr. Nugent is saying that the Khalistani threat is actually not that much in India. Certainly it can't be compared to what it was in the 1980s. What do you think? Should India guard even today against this Khalistani threat, even if it is largely overseas and not in India?
Yeah, first of all, we all should strongly condemn the vandalization and the torturing the Indian consulate in San Francisco. Shivani, we have to understand this thing. These are the frustrated elements, and these such type of acts like in Canada and England and then now in USA are a desperation on their part, because they're not getting the support that they expected from Indian soil. Here in Punjab, everybody is living peacefully. Hardly there is anyone who supports their cause and all that.
But what about the recent phenomenon of Amritpal? That just happened a few months ago.
But when police took action, do you find any public support for him? He ran away. He ran away. And there was no public support for him. He came like वो कहते हैं ना पानी के बुलबुले की तरह आया और चले गया. It's just like that. most unfortunate is this continuously, for long, these separatist terrorists and groups are now unbettedly preaching religious intolerance, anti-India propaganda from these foreign soils, and particularly from Canada. And it seems that this is being done with the sympathy, or you can say your patronization of the Canadian government. They are playing this for this cheap politics, for the vote bank politics. This is most unfortunate for any country. They should understand.
But do you think this is a threat to
respect
India? Do you think, as Mr. Nugent is asking, that this is a nuisance or is it a threat? Do you think their propaganda works on Indian Punjabis?
Look, what is there is they are getting money from the ISI and other foreign elements who want to disturb peace in India and create an atmosphere in the world that looks everything is not okay in India. Here we are propagating and we are having a large following in Punjab and like that. Whereas on the ground reality is there are hardly any followers of Khalistan in Punjab.
Okay, all right.
We are living very peacefully. But these elements, to show their presence, do such cowardly acts.
Fair enough. They obviously want to grab headlines and they sometimes succeed. Yes, Puneet Sani, you've been wanting to come in. I have final 2 minutes. Please, 30-40 seconds to you.
Yes, I just want to, there is a subtle point. You know, this Khalistanis in Canada, they're like a Muslim Brotherhood group. They don't have a vote bank. But, you know, like they have basically infiltrated the entire system and they have completely compromised it. And I give you an example. In 2021, the Canadian intelligence said, you know, this Khalistan extremism is on a rise. And this liberal government wanted to do it under pressure of Khalistanis. And the person who voted from the, you know, one of the biggest Punjabi heartlands in Canada is Brampton. His Ramesh Sangha, he was a Jat Sikh. He said, what are you doing? This is a real, I'm a proud Sikh, but I'm against terrorism. And, you know, they should follow. That guy was kicked out of the Liberal caucus. They put so much pressure. And Shivani, just to compare with this, you know, this greatest act of mass murder just happened a week ago, you know, 23rd June. No national politician went to the memorial to express, you know, this was the biggest tragedy that happened in Canadian history that has happened. And one last point I want to see, Mrs. Gandhi's tableau came out, you know, where people are shooting bullets into her. No national politician said on Twitter, when Pierre Poilievre, the one like conservative, you know, he tried to hide it in his website that, okay, I've stated a statement, but Khalistanis don't go after me. But when this low-life Nijjar, he's a Gurdwara president, he's nobody. When he's died, the Khalistanis bullied so many MPs, so many members of parliament to speak against. They are not speaking against Mrs. Gandhi. They are not naming Khalistani terrorists.
No, so that's the problem. We know the problem. Puneet, I have a minute or so left. I want to go across to G. Parthasarathi also. But I want to very quickly understand from you, what is to be done? This is Canadian politics. What can we do?
Yes, you have to set a deterrent. So, for example, WSO is doing it, World Sikh Organization. You can proscribe it. Indian government has high commissioner level relations with Canada. It can degrade it to charged affairs level. So, you are just giving statements. Like we are heard, there will be consequences. You have said no deterrent. You have said no consequences. Okay. So,
G. Parthasarathi, final 30 seconds. You agree with that? You talked about rethinking the relationship with Canada. What is to be done?
Absolutely. I think this, as our friend says, Puneet Saab, we need to tell them we're dead serious. Ask them to vacate at least 30 diplomatic posts in India and do likewise in Canada. The fact of the matter is that these people are a menace. I know when I was in Pakistan that these Canadian Sikhs used to come to Lahore, interact with intelligence agencies there, and then encourage terrorism across the border.
Right.
And they try to make this as a Sikh issue. It's not a Sikh issue in India. Sikhs in India and even in the US, are respectable people.
Absolutely.
But as I said, I think the Canadians are going a step too farther. I think
we need to do something about it.
Statement was the first blow. And I would not be surprised if, as a first measure, we do something diplomatically. Okay. I would suggest get half the Canadian staff thrown out of here.
All right.
And send a tough message, even on trade and diplomatic issues.
I understand. Thank you so much.
This has gone too far. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. It's gone too far. India needs to up the ante and draw a line, as our guests are saying. I thank all of them for joining us. Moving on to the second big issue we're tracking today, over to the debate over uniform civil code, especially with a focus on Uttarakhand, a state where a first such code can come to apply very soon, barring Goa, of course. After a late-night meeting with Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Monday, Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami met the Prime Minister today. Dhami briefed the Prime Minister about updates related to the UCC that is being planned in the state and claimed that the Prime Minister is keen on the implementation of the same. He also gave a clear-cut indication that a bill on the UCC will be tabled in the Assembly soon. After Prime Minister Modi recently raised the pitch on the UCC, the BJP has made it clear that it will be aggressive on its core ideological issues, which are, of course, including UCC in the run-up to the next year's Lok Sabha elections. And even as a national debate and law commission exercise is on, eyes are really on the Uttarakhand model as and when it is tabled. First, some details we have picked up on the Uttarakhand Chief Minister's meeting with Home Minister Amit Shah in Delhi. Now, we are told a detailed discussion on UCC was held with the Home Minister. The state UCC panel chief, Justice Ranjana Desai, who oversaw the entire drafting process, was also present. The Home Minister was briefed about the experts who were also consulted while preparing this draft. Now, some clauses in the draft are being looked at as controversial or problematic, and sources tell us that there was a plan discussed to how to tackle these clauses as and when a bill is tabled. The big debate that's coming up, though, is whether the Uttarakhand UCC template can become a model for India, and whether how the Uttarakhand UCC is tabled, accepted and enforced will set a tone for the country as well in the larger national discourse. That's coming up.
देखिए, अभी तो चूँकि यूसीसी कमेटी का ड्राफ्ट कंप्लीट रूप से हमें नहीं मिला है और उनका ड्राफ्ट जब मिलेगा तो उस पर तभी कुछ कह पाना संभव होगा। उस कमेटी ने ट्राइबल्स लोगों के बीच में जाकर भी उनके समूह से भी बात की है और उनके विचार भी लिए हैं, तो उसका सबका संकलन है उसमें यूसीसी कमेटी में। पीएम साहब देखिए, चूँकि उनको सभी इसके प्रावधानों के बारे में और उनकी सोच ही है कि देश के अंदर ये लागू होना चाहिए और उन्होंने स्वयं ही अपने वक्तव्य में कहा है, इसलिए उनको अधिकांश चीज़ों की सबकी जानकारी है।
Let's go across to the guests who are joining us. Shashank Shekhar Jha is a Supreme Court lawyer. He's with us. Some of our other guests are also joining us. Shashank, I want to understand from you as a lawyer. The court has already made it clear, the Supreme Court has already made it clear that individual state governments can actually look at bringing in UCC. We already have an example of Goa, of course, but that's more a legacy issue, not so much that was done as a brand new exercise in Goa. So I want to understand from you, do you feel legally there can be any challenges, whether it is Uttarakhand or whether it is the national government in bringing in a UCC? Because a lot of people seem to be feeling that this will run foul of their fundamental rights, including right to religion.
Namaste Shivani ji and to your fellow listeners. Shivani ji, one thing is very clear. All those people who are saying that there should be a draft of UCC before we start to have a discussion on UCC, I guess they should be the most happy people around this country, because now we actually have a draft or an upcoming draft through which we will understand as to what the government is trying to do, be it a Uttarakhand government or if it will be replicated
so
by the
you're
central
saying
government.
what the Uttarakhand draft will be more or less what the national draft will look like?
Yes, Shivani, because of the fact that Uttarakhand has a population, mixed population of Hindu, Muslim, Christians, Sikhs, Jains, tribals, and then those who live in land, and then those who live in mountains. So all kind of people and all kind of discrimination or division between the people as far as their caste, creed, gender, everything is concerned. So all those things, if will be taken care by the Uttarakhand, I guess that may be easily taken by the central government also. We need to understand that Uniform Civil Code, as we are talking here right now, what is being advocated by Article 44 of the Indian Constitution. It says just 4 things. 1, who and how can you marry? 2, who and how can you divorce? 3rd, how a child can be adopted. And 4th, how a property can be inherited. So these 4 things, I don't think there is much dispute here. Now, there is a very legitimate question as to there is a big difference between the communities of Hindu and Muslim, or for that point Muslims and Christians, or for that point tribal and non-tribal. So to those, we need to understand that when Hindu Code Bill was enacted in this country in 1955, there was a vast difference among Hindu community. If you go through the Hindu definition of Article 2 in Hindu Marriage Act, it defined Hindu as anyone who is a Hindu, be it Lingayat, be it Brahmo Samaj, be it Arya Samaji, be it Baudh, be it Jain, be it Sikh, be it Vedanshi, etc. So there are n number of difference in them also. In fact, Lingayat do not believe in Vedas. Brahmo Samaj do not believe in Murti Puja. Shaivite do not go to Vishnu Mandir.
I understand that. So your basic point is that within the Hindu community, and actually this was extended to Sikhs, Jains, etc. as well, there are so many vast differences. It hasn't really hurt anybody's freedoms, and especially religious freedoms. I'm also joined by Asif Bhamla, political analyst, joining us. Do you feel, Asif Bhamla, that this could be the perfect opportunity for the BJP to quell some of the misconceptions around the UCC? Because if a state like Uttarakhand becomes successful in tabling a draft bill and getting it passed, then it becomes easier for the national government also to convince people that, see, UCC is not this devil that you need to be afraid of.
You see, what are you going to do with people who want to utilize every law for their personal gains, whether it is UCC or whether it's the NRC or anything? Opposition और विपक्ष का काम क्या है? आपको कोताहियां और कमियां दिखाने के लिए. UCC is not a uniform dress code. It is a law जो सम्मान नागरिक का law है, जो हर देश में लागू है. पाकिस्तान में लागू है. हर पाकिस्तान तो कोई प्रगतिशील देश भी नहीं है, लेकिन हर प्रगतिशील इस्लामिक देश भी जो है उसमें भी लागू है. Now there is a section of minority communities. I am a Muslim. I think the biggest boon that happened to the women of the minority community was the banishing of the triple talaq. Today, the Muslim women are so happy. Why are the people not in a position to understand that these laws? You see, the problem ये है कि हम विपक्ष में तो हमें विरोध तो करना ही है. अब देखिए आर्टिकल 370 जो मोदी जी ने लाया, उसमें वो हमने कामयाबी हासिल हो गई. So there was, you see, we achieved success. Construction of Ram Mandir also, we were able to success. So this is a Samman Nagrik, जो uniform civil code, एक राष्ट्र, एक निशान, एक विधान, एक संविधान is something which is propagated. No, this is propagated not by you and me. It is something which has been propagated by the Supreme Court, that if this is there, it will reduce the burden. No, it will reduce. No, let me submit. It will reduce the burden of the law agencies. You see, can you imagine for me and you and for my friend on the debate to argue? It's very easy here. But it's become such a challenge to deal with different laws, different community. There is so much of diversity in a country. How do you look at the progress of the country?
Okay, but you raised a very important point, Asif Bhamla, which is that some communities are opposing or some community leaders are opposing. My point is that can we convince them? Or as you're saying that there is no convincing them, whether there is a UCC draft in Uttarakhand or in Parliament, whether it becomes successful, I don't know, tomorrow in Uttarakhand or not, some will still oppose the UCC because it is about their own...
Why do you think the government in place is not yet come out with a draft? Because there is a whole lot of experts. There's a law communication that is initiated to exercise this. There is a public opinion that has been taken over on this. There are millions of references which have been studied at a lightning speed, because we don't want to commit any blunder. This is a question of the country's dignity.
No, fair enough. But in Uttarakhand, for example, a draft is nearly ready. The Chief Minister is not giving out much of the details, but a draft is nearly ready. A committee has already done its work for 1 year. And we're all waiting for what it's going to be, because that's going to give us a sense of what a national UCC could also be. But very quickly, Mr. Bhamla, please complete.
As a government, I'm spokesperson for the BJP as well. And as a government, let me tell you that our government in place is going to take every step very cautiously, because we know the opposition is going to try and find out loopholes in every single decision or legislation that we come up to, because उनका काम ही है ना.
No, fair enough. होना भी चाहिए democracy में, होना भी चाहिए, counterbalance होना चाहिए. नहीं, मैं आपसे जो सवाल पूछना चाह रही थी, मेरा मेन सवाल बस यही था कि बीजेपी के लिए अब ये आसान हो जाएगा अगर उत्तराखंड का ड्राफ्ट आ जाता है, बिल आ जाता है और पास हो जाता है, तो बीजेपी के, आपको क्या लगता है कि बीजेपी के लिए आसान हो जाएगा लोगों को कन्विंस करना कि देखिए उत्तराखंड में भी हुआ है, नेशनली भी होना चाहिए?
देखिए, एक राज्य में किसी कानून को पारित करना आसान होता है बनिस्बत देश भर में. There are many logistics, there are many demographics, there are many political parties, there are many permutations and combinations when it goes on a national level. And so, if at all it's happening in Uttarakhand, and which it will, so the draft cannot be just prepared and just thrown out, कि ये लीजिए, आप देख लीजिए, आप इसको स्वीकार कर लीजिए. नहीं. We are living in a fairly democratic country, so we have to ensure that all angles, all areas, it's a well thought process, and then
understood. You're saying you still need to be careful, which is good to hear. But there should be more consultation, I think, which is what people are asking for. अभी तो law commission कर रहा है invite opinion, but उसके बाद भी थोड़ा political consultation भी होना चाहिए, which maybe the BJP in power can initiate. Yes, Shashank, you wanted to come in. I have final minutes left. Yes.
Yes, Shivani ji, one thing which is common in Uniform Civil Code, which is being brought by BJP today, as far as I see, Hindu Civil Code, which was brought by Nehru government in 1955. During Nehru government, Nehru actually fought his elections in 1952 on the prayer that they will be bringing a Hindu Civil Code after they win the election. So they made this Hindu Civil Code a point to win the election, and then they brought it. They were oppositions then also. Now similarly, BJP government also put it in their manifesto, be it in Uttarakhand or for that point central, and they won the election, and thereafter they brought it. So you need to understand.
No, in Uttarakhand, of course, it's absolutely fair. I don't think anybody can question the exercise of the UCC in Uttarakhand. They made it a poll issue. People gave them the mandate. In any case, every government needs to strive to ensure a UCC for the entire country. That's what the Constitution Directive Principle also says. Interestingly, what many don't talk about is that till 1935, in most parts of India, under the British, Hindus, Muslims and everybody actually did come under a common civil code. It changed only when the Shariat Act was passed. So if we could do that then why not now? Vivek Bansal is from the Congress party. Sir, you've joined us late. I have a final 2 minutes left. My fundamental question is that there is a lot of hysteria being built up on the UCC. Congress party hasn't quite made its stance very clear. But now we have a UCC draft of sorts for Uttarakhand. Don't you think as the national polity should come together to study that bill, that draft, when it gets tabled, and actually have a more constructive discussion on this than just do fear-mongering on this? Mr. Bansal, you can hear me? All right. It looks like I don't quite have that connection. I'll give 30 seconds to Afseh Bhamla. I have to end after that. Yes, Afseh Bhamla.
You see, like the IPC, the CRPC, why can't we have a uniform civil code? This was suggested, recommended by the late Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Not only this, the UV Chandrachud, the Supreme Court judge's father, Mr. Senior Chandrachud, had also recommended this. So this is a very sought out law, which is better for a progressive country in larger interest, in the interest of ensuring that there is more sanity, there is more unanimity. You see, in ek ke liye alag law, uske liye alag law.
Fair enough.
Aur political parties will not stop their politics.
Understood. And maybe then the public needs to judge them on that, on what stance they take as far as the UCC is concerned. I've run out of time. Asif Bhamla, I'm sorry, I've run out of time.
They will not come out with, unfortunately.
We'll slip into a very short break. We'll have more news and updates planned up. We'll also have a special chat on the Ashes. Remember, the Ashes battle is becoming uglier by the day. There's a lot of controversy. We'll get you more on that in just a bit.
Four pictures, faces of Khalistan extremists. However, nobody has been arrested in that case even. So how will you take action? A temple is vandalized. Minister come, MPs come, they help you to clean up the walls and everything. However, no action has been taken. Nobody has been arrested. When it comes to concrete action, I find it really frustrating that Australian authorities are taking it too easy. And I can tell you that 30, 35 years back, same way Canadian authorities took these Khalistan propagandists, extremists not seriously, and Kanishka bombing happened. And that's what we are seeing. One step forward is yesterday's incident of firebombing of San Francisco Consulate of India. We don't know what will happen on Saturday. Coming Saturday, there is a call by Khalistani extremists to come to Consulate and do the same what they have done in America. So let's see. We are just waiting. We will be reporting. However, the Australian authorities have to really wake up to the reality.
My colleague Anjali Pandey had actually spoken with the founder and CEO of Diya TV, Ravi Kapoor, about the separatist attack in San Francisco. Let's listen into that.
There was a sting operation in the Central Valley of California, and a number of people considered to be involved with gangs in the Central Valley, all of whom were of Sikh origin, all of whom were Punjabi, were arrested and by authorities here in California. So because San Francisco police is involved, potentially the FBI as well, there is very likely to be a number of law enforcement agents involved.
Also, Mr. Kapoor, why do you think there is a rise in such attacks by separatist groups in San Francisco?
Well, it's hard to say about San Francisco specifically. I mean, I've been here my entire life. My family's been here for more than 60 years. So this has always been a very unified community, largely Punjabi historically, but with Silicon Valley, it's really diversified. You have people from all the different states in India that have immigrated here, assimilated here, done incredibly well. But you do have this very large emerging theme amongst certain groups. You get that in Canada and you get that in California, where there is a group of folks that are looking for Khalistan to get formed. And
also, Mr. Kapoor, the United States State Department has condemned this attack, but on the other hand, we are not seeing any concrete action being taken against these separatist groups.
Well, I think what has happened here is that there is immense dialogue between these two nations. I mean, I was very fortunate. I was actually in the very front row for that press conference between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden, and I got to see. They only took a couple of questions each, but I could see the camaraderie between Ambassador Garcetti, who's now representing the United States, and External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar, and they were having a nice conversation before that event got started. So I think these two governments are working together on intelligence.
We're actually going to be crossing over to our guest who's joining us on the broadcast right now, Mr. Jay Bharadwaj, who's the founder and editor-in-chief of the Australia Today. Mr. Bharadwaj, thank you so much for joining us here on CNN News 18. As we cover what's taking place in both Canada and the United States when it comes to separatist attacks, how do you see the recent incidents?
Say it's very concerning, and after firebombing of Indian consulate in San Francisco, Australian authorities are on high alert, as we understand right now. Concerning is the least what we can say. It's unprecedented that Indian High Commission, Indian consulate, or its officials are being openly threatened. The posters and posts are floating on social media, especially on TikTok, for calling decisive action. And this decisive action is not for protest. This is not for making a human chain or something. This decisive action, they are calling for physically harming Indian officials here in Australia. And as yet, we have to haven't heard anything from Australian authorities, be it Department of Foreign Affairs, which is responsible for well-being of diplomats here in Australia. We haven't heard from Australian Federal Police or local Victorian or ACT Police. They are yet to respond to our queries about these threats to these officials. One social media post, which was one of the most concerning, in fact, it was brought to our notice by the Australian security agencies. that it was asking to do the same what has happened in San Francisco. So he probably whatnot across what has happened there in US. Then we had exchange of that video which shows how it has been firebombed. And after that, probably when they understood the severity of this incident, probably there has been.
Thanks a lot for staying with us. Now, there is some breaking updates coming in. Some shocking visuals have emerged. This is coming from Madhya Pradesh, where a man has been caught on camera pissing on another man, urinating on another man. The video is from Madhya Pradesh, as I said, and this has gone viral. The Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister has taken cognizance of the same, and we are told that the hunt for the accused is now underway. Let me go across to my colleague Manoj Sharma, who's joining us. Manoj, exactly what happened here? What do we know?
Yeah, in fact, we have spoken to police sources that, as you have already seen, that Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister, he has tweeted that he is going to take very stern action against this guy who has been seen in this viral video urinating on another man. And in fact, he would be booked in under Section National Security Act, booked under NSA, and also a case has been already booked against this guy, Pravesh Shukla. He has been identified as Pravesh Shukla, and he has been booked under Section 294 and 504 of the Indian Penal Code, and also the SC/ST Act, because the guy on whom he was urinating was a tribal guy. So obviously now Congress is targeting the BJP, but the Chief Minister has taken stern action, and we have also spoken to Kedar Shukla. This guy has been, it has been shown, it has been said that he is closely associated with the BJP MLA there in CD, Kedar Shukla. But Kedar Shukla is saying that he has spoken to the Chief Minister and that he has denied that he has got any relation with this guy. He's not his representative, but he is known to him.
So very quickly, Manoj, where exactly in Madhya Pradesh has this happened? Has that been ascertained?
Yeah, this is CD district. This is tribal-dominated CD district of Madhya Pradesh, and this is at least more than week. This incident took place at Kubari Bazar in CD district of Madhya Pradesh.
All right, Manoj Sharma, thanks a lot for bringing us more details on that. Moving on, the 2023 Ashes has been more in the news for various controversies than even the actual cricket that is being played. Now, Australia won the Lord's Test by 43 runs, remember, but not before things turned a bit ugly. On day 5, Johnny Bairstow was given out stumped in a unique fashion. The batter let go of a bouncer from Cameron Green, after which he stepped out of his crease without realizing that the ball was very much still in play, and Alex Carey, the wicketkeeper, took advantage of that situation and stumped him. England were miffed with their rivals for what they believed was an act against the spirit of the game. War of words also broke out between the two captains. Ben Stokes said England would not have resorted to such a form of dismissal for the sake of victory. Pat Cummins, on the other hand, said that Carey played within the laws of the game and did not use any unfair means to get Bairstow out. Remember, before this, Mitchell Starc was also involved in another controversial catch. In the third and final session of the fourth day's play, Starc took a catch of Ben Duckett at fine leg region, but while completing the catch, he fell to on the ground. The third umpire reckoned that Starc was not in control of the ball completely while taking the catch, and hence Duckett got a lifeline. This too divided the cricket world. Remember, the catch not given out reminded fans of Shubman Gill's dismissal in the WTC final. Many feel there was greater evidence then that Cameron Green was not in control of his body or the ball, as it appeared to touch the ground without his fingers beneath it. This has brought under question the inconsistency amongst third umpire calls. We'll focus on all of that, and particularly that Bairstow dismissal, the spirit of the game being talked about one more time. But is the outrage, especially from the English, justified over this dismissal? For that, let me go across to K.N. Raghavan, who is a former umpire and cricket writer, joining us. K. Srinivas Rao is Group Editor, Sports Network 18. Srinivas, what I love about this incident is that everybody's past is coming out. There are now videos circulating of Bairstow doing exactly this to another batsman, right? So, this has really brought out how heated Ashes can be, but how duplicitous the standards are on spirit of the game.
last 48 hours have only been about, but do you remember what you did last summer?
Yes.
So I think, yeah, this was the video that we're talking about is Travis Head talking about Bairstow.
Yeah.
And Travis Head saying that Bairstow tried to do something similar to him. So equally funny was Broad's comment to a statement to Cummins, Pat Cummins, saying that you are responsible for what you did or something. He's accusing him. I mean, I don't know where these guys have suddenly got that moral chip on the shoulder and where are they coming from. And the spirit of the game, I'm sorry to say, the spirit of the game has become such a nonsensical issue here that wherever a law has to be questioned, you just about, it's like, aap ek chini chammach lenge ya do. That's how the spirit of the game tends to, kind of come out of the jar. I think it's ridiculous here.
So you're saying
the
English have no right to be incensed here, right?
Of course, absolutely no right to be incensed. Absolutely no right.
K.N. Raghavan, you've been an umpire as well. You're a cricket lover and cricket writer. The other question that is arising is, are some of the rules of the game, open to subjection? For example, in terms of those catches, because I just talked about 2 catches that have just happened in recent past. Shubman Gill was even penalized by the ICC because he spoke out against his catch and his dismissal. But you've got another catch which doesn't go Australia's way, and it looked like Shubman Gill's was equally, equally in doubt, equally dubious, that catch.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the Shubman Gill's call was a very tight one, and probably there was some amount of unfairness in it. So one can understand what Gill said about it. But in the case of the catch that Stark took, it was not out because he was not in control of the ball. That was very evident. Whatever the Australians say about it, he had, without gaining full control of the ball, grounded it, or the ball had touched the ground. So the third umpire's decision there was correct. In the case of Gill, there was always a question of doubt, because what happens is that in these sort of catches where the ball is taken very, very low, the camera portions can tend to be tricky. So the third umpire's decision is always fair and correct. So Gill was certainly justified on that. But then, as you say, the umpire's decision is final and binding, which probably is the reason why ICC came down harshly on him. The match referee came down harshly on him. But in the case of Stark, there was no doubt. The catch was not taken clearly because he did not have control over the ball and it had touched the ground. Regarding Bairstow, I have one thing to say. He is a wicketkeeper. He knows the rules of the game. He should not have gone outside the crease without the ball becoming dead.
No, actually, can I just interrupt you for 1 second? There is this instance of Travis Head that Srini is talking about. But there's actually a video of Bairstow behind the stumps, Srini. I don't remember against which team it is. But he waited for the nanosecond when a batsman lifted his foot while he was still inside the crease and stumped that batsman. Now, if you can be that clever and cunning when you are behind the wicket, you better not complain when something like this happens, because this was not proper cricket from his point of view. He should have, as a batsman, seen behind him, given a look to the wicketkeeper, realized what was happening, and then decided to walk off the crease. Yes, Mr. Raghavan, please complete. I'll go to Srini next. Yes.
Yeah, there are 2 things. One is Bairstow should not have gone out. It was, as Atherton said, it was dosy cricket.
Yes.
Well, I will also bring back an incident in 1981 when Keith Fletcher's team was traveling to India, touring India. Srikanth in his first test played a ball to gully and he walked out just to tap the pitch. And Embury threw the ball onto the stems and ran him out. We didn't complain, we didn't whine, because that was within the laws of the game. So Bairstow should also understand that walking out of the crease when the ball is still in play can invite an action. As a wicketkeeper, he knows that. It was one moment of what you call brain fade for him, and it cannot be justified. Aussies took advantage of that. There's nothing against the spirit of the game there. It was well within the laws, and they were well right in that. And in the match, you'll also find many occasions when Ben Stokes had picked up the ball and passed it on to fielders. If England had appealed, that would have been against the spirit of the game. Because that sort of dismissal is extremely, extremely rare of handling the ball. Only Pakistan has done it once, sometime in 1970, and Sarfraz Nawaz had done it. But otherwise, handling the ball is hardly resorted to. Aussies did not resort to it when Ben Stokes picked up the ball and threw it at the, handed it back to the bowler. If the ball was still in play, probably they could have appealed for that. So had they done that, that would have been against the spirit of the game. But what carried it was well within the spirit of the game, well within the laws of the game, and England has no moral or any other right to whine or complain about it.
Yes, but they are complaining, Srini. In fact, you know, the atmosphere has become quite negative. There were those visuals from inside the Lord's, you know, MCC rooms as well for the members. A lot of chatter about whether there was improper conduct on the part of some members when it came to especially Usman Khwaja, for example. I'm not sure if I've seen any of the videos where I can really point out to something wrong being said. I think they were booing the Australian team, which is, I'm guessing, in sports, you can't really quite control or handle that. Did you see that as problematic, how the members behaved at Lord's?
Of course. See, at the end of the day, the player has gone ahead and condemned it. Okay, Usman Khwaja has gone ahead and condemned what happened in the in that area when the Aussie players were walking out. And I think the player condemning it and the player actually talking about it is serious enough for the authorities, whoever's in control, to actually take action or investigate it thoroughly, which has been said where the MCC members were there. Now, we are talking about the flag bearers of the game here, the people who actually vote, and their vote decides like how, you know, kind of this game begins to construct or reconstruct itself. And in that, you have these men probably, you know, kind of, I don't know, what does it smack of? It smacks of, you know, kind of some imperialism that's at play here. It smacks of a kind of that stiff upper lip that we are looking at in terms of, you know, we are the ones who make the game. We are the ones who dictate how this game runs. And I think that there was something extremely ugly about that behavior, which went beyond the whole realm of just,
maybe outside the realm of sportsmanship, isn't it? Because you would expect, regardless of what happens on the field, when you come off the field, the players are respected by all fans and all members.
But Shivani,
yes,
that's what I was saying. If these were normal fans, then yes, I mean, what you're saying would stand true. But what we're talking about here is MCC members, you know, MCC for whatever it stands today. And this whole debate that we are having, you know, between the laws of the game and the spirit of the game and what stands, what doesn't, whether the spirit of the game is relevant here or not. These men who sit in that space and these men who actually, you know, kind of make MCC what it is, for them to actually be standing up and saying what they did to Khwaja, and I'm not even saying what they said. That's for the investigation too.
Yeah, there was an apology though tendered as far as the members are concerned, which is the right thing to happen.
About it.
But I have final minute. Let me take 30 seconds with both of you. Raghavan ji, you know, the point is that Ashes always has a very highly contested atmosphere. Do you think this time it has kind of got derailed into acrimony, or do you think by the time they come out for the next test, you know, the teams will get on?
They will get out of it. It's just all in the game. The teams will get out of it and play. Actually, the quality of cricket has been quite good, and I am sure that will continue.
Srini, what do you make of the atmosphere that is continuing?
Oh, yeah. I completely agree with what he's saying. You know, these players are bold enough, matured enough to actually realize, you know, what the moment is all about. So they're going to come out of this. And I'm going to pay, if I were to be in England, I'd pay top dollar to be at Headingley. I'd pay whatever it takes to be at Headingley. That's going to be the test match to watch. Because these are players who are going to come up with like anger but simmering. They know that they can't afford to show it beyond a line which has already been drawn. So, you know, and
you really expect that? Do you really expect that every player will be behaving themselves on the pitch? I think there'll be a lot of sledging going on.
Well, sledging happens, Shivani. Sledging happens. Whichever game you look at, sledging happens. And
maybe a more heightened level of sledging will take place. Yeah, fair enough. As long as it's in healthy manner, then it's okay. But certainly the Ashes are living up to their reputation in one way, which is this very heightened contest where everybody gets overexcited sometimes as well. I do thank K.N. Raghavan and Srinivas Rao for joining us for that quick chat. Time for me to take your leave. My colleague Anand is joining you on the other side.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. A consulate or a high commission or an embassy of a nation